Imagine being 52 years old, watching other people become successful while you struggle just to get by. Every year feels the same. Every morning begins with hope, and every evening ends with disappointment. You work hard, you keep trying, but nothing changes. Most people would give up. Most people would accept their fate. Ray Kroc didn't. And what happened next changed the world forever. Long before he became rich, before the restaurants, before the empire, Ray Kroc was just another struggling salesman. He wasn't famous, he wasn't wealthy, and he certainly wasn't successful. For decades, he chased opportunities that never seemed to work out. He sold paper cups, worked in sales, played piano, tried different businesses, but nothing changed. Years passed, then more years passed. Friends built careers, others became successful. Yet Ray's life stayed exactly the same. Every day felt like a repeat of the last. Imagine looking in the mirror at 52 years old and realizing your biggest dream still hasn't happened. Many people would stop believing. Many people would settle. Ray didn't. By the early 1950s, Ray was selling milkshake machines across America. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't exciting, and it certainly wasn't making him rich. He spent countless hours on the road, driving from town to town, meeting restaurant owners, listening to rejection after rejection. Some restaurants bought his machines. Most didn't. Every sale mattered. Every customer mattered. Because Ray knew he couldn't afford to fail. Not anymore. Then one day, something unusual happened. A small restaurant in California placed an order. Not one machine, not two, eight milkshake machines for a single restaurant. Ray stared at the order form again and again. Something didn't make sense. What kind of restaurant needed that much equipment? What were they doing differently? And why had nobody heard about them? At that moment, Ray felt something he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. Ray couldn't stop thinking about it. 8 machines, 1 restaurant. Something was different. Something was happening there, and he needed to know what it was. So he made a decision. He got into his car and drove across the country. Not for money, not for business, but for answers. Mile after mile, hour after hour. Ray kept thinking about that order. 8 machines for 1 restaurant. The numbers simply didn't make sense. The more he thought about it, the more curious he became. And deep down, he felt that this trip could change everything. The journey was long. Roads stretched endlessly ahead. Small towns came and went. Gas stations, motels, highways. Days passed. But the question remained the same. Why? Why would one restaurant need 8 milkshake machines? Then finally, he arrived. What he found shocked him. The parking lot was full. Customers were everywhere. Families, workers, teenagers. Everyone seemed to be there, and everyone was getting food faster than he had ever seen before. People weren't waiting. They weren't complaining. They weren't leaving. They were lining up. Again, and again, and again. Inside, everything moved with incredible precision. No wasted motion, no confusion, no delays. Every worker knew exactly what to do. Every second mattered. The kitchen looked more like a factory than a restaurant. Every burger followed the same process. Every order followed the same system. Everything was measured. Everything was optimized. Everything was fast. Faster than anything Ray had ever seen before. And then, he realized something important. This wasn't luck. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a coincidence. This was design. Someone had built this system intentionally. Every step, every movement, every second. For the first time, Ray understood what he was really looking at. He wasn't looking at a restaurant, a system that could be repeated again and again and again across America. The restaurant belonged to two brothers, Richard and Maurice McDonald. To them, this was simply a successful business, a restaurant that worked, a restaurant that made money, nothing more. But Ray saw something completely different. He saw a blueprint. He saw a formula. He saw an opportunity. Something that could spread, something that could scale, something that could become much bigger than food. For days, Ray couldn't stop thinking about it. What if there were 10 restaurants? What if there were 100? What if there were 1,000? What if every family in America knew the name McDonald's? The idea refused to leave his mind. Because for the first time in decades, Ray could see the future. And the future looked enormous, much bigger than anyone else could imagine. Ray approached the McDonald brothers with an idea, a bold idea, a risky idea, an idea that had the potential to change everything. Franchising. What if this restaurant existed in every city? What if the same system could be repeated over and over again? What if millions of people experienced the same speed, the same quality, and the same consistency? At first, the brothers weren't convinced. They had tried expansion before, and it hadn't gone well. They worried about losing quality. They worried about losing control. They worried about damaging the reputation they had worked so hard to build. And honestly, their concerns made sense. But Ray kept pushing, because he couldn't stop seeing the future. A future with hundreds of restaurants, then thousands, then maybe something even bigger. New restaurants opened, customers arrived, the brand started growing. For the first time in years, Ray felt success getting closer than ever before. Every new location felt like proof that his vision was working, proof that he had been right all along, proof that all those years of struggle might finally be worth something. But then, reality arrived. A serious problem emerged. The restaurants were growing, but Ray wasn't getting rich. Not even close. The franchise fees were small. The expenses were high. Money kept flowing out, faster than it was coming in. Every month felt like a fight. Every decision carried risk. Every expansion required more money. And money was something Ray didn't have. There were moments when everything felt like it might collapse. Moments when the dream seemed impossible. Moments when failure felt close. Very close. Late at night, Ray sat alone, studying numbers, reviewing contracts, searching for answers. Because despite all the growth, something still wasn't working. The business looked successful, but appearances can be deceptive. Revenue was growing. Restaurants were growing. The brand was growing. Yet the financial foundation remained fragile. And then, something happened. Ray began looking at the business differently. Not as a salesman, not as a franchise operator, but as a builder, a strategist, a businessman. And that's when he saw something that everyone else had missed. Most people saw restaurants. Most people saw hamburgers. Most people saw customers. Ray saw something else, something much bigger, something far more valuable. He saw an empire hidden inside a simple restaurant business, an empire waiting to be built. And from that moment, everything changed. Ray couldn't stop thinking. Something still wasn't right. The restaurants were growing, the brand was growing, the customer base was growing. Yet the business still felt fragile. Something was missing. Every night, he studied contracts. Every night, he reviewed numbers. Every night, he searched for an answer. And then, late one evening, he found it. Not in the restaurants, not in the menu, Not in the kitchens, not in the customers. The answer was hidden somewhere else. At first, it seemed insignificant, almost boring, just land, pieces of land, property beneath each restaurant, nothing more. Or so it seemed. Then suddenly, everything clicked. Everything. The real business wasn't hamburgers. It wasn't French fries. It wasn't milkshakes. The real business was land. Land. The ground beneath every restaurant. The property every franchise owner depended on. The foundation beneath the entire business. And if Ray controlled the land, he controlled everything. Suddenly, the entire business model changed. He began purchasing property, then leasing it back to franchise owners, restaurant by restaurant, location by location, state by state. The system started generating more money, more stability, more control, more power. Expansion accelerated. New locations appeared everywhere. Highways, suburbs, cities, entire regions. What once looked impossible was becoming reality. Carter Ross businesser, but success created another problem, a bigger problem. The relationship between Ray Kroc and the McDonald brothers. The brothers wanted stability. Ray wanted growth. The brothers wanted caution. Ray wanted speed. The brothers wanted a restaurant business. Ray wanted an empire. An empire. The disagreements became more frequent, then more serious, then unavoidable. Both sides saw the future differently, and eventually, the partnership reached its limit. Ray made a decision, one of the biggest decisions of his life. He bought the company. He bought McDonald's. Now, the future belonged to him, and he moved faster than ever before. Restaurants spread across the country, then across borders, then across continents. Every year, the empire grew larger and larger and larger. Millions of customers, thousands of restaurants. One of the most recognizable brands on earth, all because one salesman refused to stop. At 52 years old, most people thought his story was already over. Too old, too late, too risky. They were wrong, because success doesn't care how old you are. Success doesn't care how many times you failed. Success doesn't care how long it takes. What matters is whether you keep moving forward, whether you keep learning, whether you keep looking for opportunities, even when everyone else stops. Ray Kroc spent decades searching, and when opportunity finally appeared, he was ready. One decision, one opportunity, one idea can change everything. In reality, his story was only beginning.